What are we gonna do, Jerry?
Stay calm. Stay calm. Stay the speed limit.
Hey, man, that coming around me.
Thank God.
Just a single phone call ended Mike Cockrell's moonshining career. After learning that one of his customers had been questioned by police, Mike raced toward a hidden stash house, fearing his worst nightmare had finally become reality. As rumors of his downfall spread across the internet, fans began wondering if one of Moonshiner's biggest stars had finally reached the end of the road. So, what really happened to Mike behind the scenes? And is this the moment where it all ends? Join us as we uncover the truth behind what really led to Mike Cockrell's downfall. Mike's final sentence. For years, Mike Cockrell built his reputation around one simple rule: stay one step ahead. Every run, every hidden still, and every gallon of moonshine came with the understanding that one mistake could end everything. It was the same risk generations of moonshiners had lived with, and this same risk turned some into legends while sending others straight to prison. Then the rumors started. Word spread online that Mike had finally been caught. Some claimed law enforcement had closed in after a series of crackdowns on illegal liquor operations. Others insisted his time on Moonshiners was over because the authorities had finally caught up with him. As the stories gained momentum, fans began asking the same question. Had one of the show's most recognizable moonshiners finally run out of luck? The speculation did not come out of nowhere. It began when word reached Mike that one of his customers had been questioned by police. The warning sent Mike racing toward his secret stash house, only to spot law enforcement near the area before he even arrived. For someone whose life revolved around staying invisible, the pressure kept building. From the outside, it looked as though Mike Cockrell's story was heading toward the same ending that had haunted moonshiners for generations. The signs were there, the rumors refused to die, and many believed the final chapter had already been written. But the truth behind those rumors turned out to be far more complicated than anyone expected. However, before the police ever came knocking, moonshining had been part of Mike's life from the very beginning. The life Mike was born into. Long before television cameras followed his every move, Mike Cockrell was growing up in the mountains of Sevier County, Tennessee, where moonshining was more than a way to make money. For many families, it was part of their history. Recipes and techniques were passed down from one generation to the next, often in secret. Mike was surrounded by relatives who knew how to turn corn, sugar, water, and yeast into moonshine, a product that had been made in the Appalachian Mountains for centuries. As a child, he spent countless hours watching his father and uncles work around their stills. While other children learned family traditions around the dinner table, Mike's lessons came in the woods and hidden hollows where every step of the process had to be done carefully. He watched how the mash was prepared and how the fire had to be controlled. Before long, many of those family recipes had become second nature to him. But Mike also grew up understanding something equally important. Moonshining was never just about making liquor. It was about living with consequences. Every batch carried a risk because producing untaxed alcohol without the proper licenses had long been against the law. Families involved in the trade learned to stay quiet and avoid attracting attention. One careless conversation or the wrong customer could expose an entire operation. That reality had been part of Appalachian life for generations. Moonshiners often built their stills deep in the mountains, close to natural water sources, and hidden beneath thick tree cover, where smoke and movement were harder to spot. They worked at times when fewer people were likely to be nearby, and rarely stayed in one location for long. The constant fear of discovery shaped almost every decision they made. Mike embraced that lifestyle because it was all he had ever known. Rather than walking away from the family trade, he chose to preserve it. Keeping those traditions alive became something he took pride in, even as the risks remained unchanged. By the time Moonshiners introduced him to viewers in Season 6, Mike already had years of practical experience behind him. Still, experience offered no guarantees. Mike knew the stories of moonshiners whose operations had been raided and whose lives had changed overnight after one mistake. Every person who entered the business accepted that possibility from the very beginning. Even so, Mike believed the rewards were worth the gamble. The family legacy he inherited had survived for generations despite the dangers, and he intended to carry it forward. Soon, that determination and lifelong experience led him to the opportunity of a lifetime, the partnership that changed everything. Mike's reputation took a major leap when an unexpected opportunity landed in his lap during Season 6 of Moonshiners. After reports of arrests disrupted moonshining operations across a neighboring state line, experienced moonshiner Mark Rogers saw an opening. With less competition in parts of Tennessee, he wanted to expand production before anyone else could move in. But taking over unfamiliar territory came with serious risks, and Mark knew he needed someone who understood the mountains better than anyone else. That person was Mike Cockrell. Unlike outsiders, Mike knew the back roads, the secluded hollows, and the locations that offered the best chance of staying hidden. His local knowledge made him the perfect partner for a venture that depended on staying one step ahead. Mark's longtime partners, Jeff and Lance, supported the plan, and together they set out to make the most of the opportunity while it lasted. The gamble paid off almost immediately. The partnership proved to be an immediate success, as Mark and Mike continued producing enough moonshine to expand their operation. It was no small task, but their teamwork proved to be effective. Mark handled the planning while Mike's experience in the area helped keep the operation running smoothly. By the end of the season, they had not only reached their target, but slightly exceeded it, turning what began as a risky expansion into one of their biggest successes. Their results spoke for themselves. Mark openly praised Mike's work ethic, saying the operation ran efficiently because they worked together from start to finish. The success convinced Mark that he had found the right partner for the future. After the season, he officially parted ways with Jeff and Lance, choosing to continue working alongside Mike instead. The decision marked a turning point in Mike's journey on the show. Until then, he had been known mainly within moonshining circles. Now, he is one of the standout faces of Moonshiners. Viewers saw him as a skilled distiller who could handle difficult terrain and solve problems under pressure. But success came with a price. The more productive Mike became, the more attention he attracted. Producing larger quantities of moonshine meant more buyers and greater risks with every run. Nevertheless, at the time, Mike had every reason to believe he was on the rise. His partnership with Mark had delivered exactly what they hoped for, and the future looked brighter than ever. What neither of them realized was that their biggest challenge would not come from expanding into new territory, but from a single mistake that would test their friendships and leave Mike facing consequences he never saw coming. The costly mistake that nearly destroyed his reputation. Success had given Mike Cockrell confidence, but confidence could quickly become a liability. After establishing himself as one of the show's most capable moonshiners, he found himself caught in a dispute that became one of the most talked-about moments of his time on Moonshiners. This time, the threat did not come from law enforcement, but from a decision he made in the heat of the moment. The trouble began after Mike became convinced that fellow moonshiner Kelly Williamson had stolen one of his stills. In the moonshine business, losing a still could wipe out weeks of preparation and thousands of dollars in potential earnings. To Mike, it was not just a theft, but a direct attack on his livelihood. So instead of letting the matter go, he decided to settle the score himself. Believing he had tracked down Kelly's operation, Mike took matters into his own hands and blew up the still. From his point of view, he was destroying the equipment of the person he believed had wronged him. But almost immediately, it became clear that something had gone terribly wrong. The equipment did not belong to Kelly Williamson at all. It belonged to two respected moonshiners, Mark Ramsey and Eric Digger Maines. The mistake changed everything. To make matters worse, the entire incident was caught on camera. There was no room to deny what had happened or quietly move on. Mark and Digger were furious when they discovered their equipment had been destroyed for a dispute that had nothing to do with them. In most businesses, the dispute might have ended in court, but moonshining operates in a very different world. Because everyone involved was participating in illegal alcohol production, taking the matter before a judge was never a realistic option. The only way to resolve the conflict was among themselves. Therefore, Mike accepted responsibility. He agreed to compensate Mark and Digger for the damage and promised to repay them $7,500. It was not an easy debt to clear, but he had to pay it to make things right. Throughout the season, Mike dealt with setbacks that slowed production and affected his ability to make money. Each obstacle pushed repayment further out of reach, adding even more pressure to an already difficult situation. Eventually, he made good on his promise. The payment settled the financial side of the dispute, but money could not erase what had happened. Mike had learned that lesson the hard way. He was no longer seen only as the hard-working partner who helped produce record amounts of moonshine. He was now the man whose snap decision had destroyed the wrong still and nearly fractured relationships with fellow moonshiners. It was a mistake that followed him long after the equipment had been replaced and the debt had been paid. Yet even after weathering that storm, a far greater challenge was waiting just around the corner. The closest Mike came to losing everything. Just when it seemed Mike Cockrell had put one crisis behind him, another arrived that was far more serious. This time, the threat came from exactly what every moonshiner spends years trying to avoid: the possibility that law enforcement had discovered the operation. By season 10, Mike had teamed up with Jerry Benson, another experienced moonshiner whose approach complemented his own. The pair focused on producing clear liquor, using a tall column still to produce a clean, neutral spirit. While flavored moonshine had its market, they found steady demand for clear alcohol, especially during the early months of the COVID-19 pandemic, when consumer habits changed and buyers wanted products that could be mixed in different ways. Despite the uncertainty surrounding the country, Mike and Jerry believed they had found a way to keep their business alive. Then everything changed with a single phone call. As they were driving toward Kentucky to deliver moonshine to a customer, Mike's phone rang. On the other end was fellow moonshiner Daniel, who had heard something deeply troubling. Word was spreading that one of Mike's customers had been questioned by law enforcement. Daniel and Mike had not always agreed on everything, and their relationship had seen its share of disagreements over the years. Even so, Daniel felt the warning was too important to ignore. He urged Mike to turn around immediately. At first, Jerry tried to stay optimistic. Their moonshine was safely hidden inside a secret stash house, and neither of them believed anyone could easily find it. But Mike's mind immediately went back to a decision he now regretted. Earlier that season, he had met the customer on a road not far from the stash house. At the time, it seemed convenient. Now it looked like a mistake that could cost them everything. Mike understood how investigations often worked. If a customer was questioned and decided to cooperate, intentionally or not, Even a vague description of the meeting place could point officers in the right direction. Suddenly, the location that had once seemed secure no longer felt hidden at all. Without wasting another minute, Mike and Jerry abandoned the delivery and headed back. The drive became a race against time. Every mile brought new questions. Had the police already arrived? Was someone watching the property? Could they remove the moonshine before anyone found it? Neither man had answers, but both knew they had to see the situation for themselves. As they approached the area, their worst fears began to unfold. A police vehicle was visible near the road leading toward the stash house. There was also someone moving around the property, making it clear that something was happening. Mike and Jerry did not dare drive any closer. Stopping or drawing attention to themselves could have made the situation even worse. Instead, they kept moving, realizing there was nothing they could do. Inside that stash house sat roughly 150 gallons of moonshine. Months of work, valuable equipment, and a large portion of their income had been lost. Whether it was seized or simply no longer safe to recover, the result was the same. The operation had been compromised, and there was no realistic way to undo it. The timing could hardly have been worse. The pandemic had already slowed business across the country. Celebrations were canceled, and many of the customers who normally bought moonshine were no longer spending money the way they once had. Losing such a large supply during an already difficult period hit Mike and Jerry harder than either of them expected. For months, they struggled to recover. Sales dried up, and the future of their partnership suddenly looked fragile. It felt like their career had ended. However, like many others trying to survive during the pandemic, they were forced to rethink their next move. Eventually, the two left Tennessee and headed to North Carolina, where Jerry had stronger local connections and believed they could start over with a fresh opportunity. It was one of the lowest points Mike had experienced since joining Moonshiners. Unlike earlier setbacks that involved broken equipment or disputes with fellow distillers, this loss struck at the heart of the business itself. For many viewers, this was the moment that fueled rumors that Mike's career had finally come to an end. But while Mike had survived one of the most frightening chapters of his moonshining career, his story was not over yet. Where Mike's story ends. Looking back, it's easy to understand why so many people believed Mike Cockrell's moonshining career was over. A police scare, a massive loss of moonshine, financial setbacks, and years of rumors made it seem like the walls were finally closing in. But unlike many moonshiners before him, Mike's story didn't end there. As restrictions began to ease in 2021, business slowly started to recover. People were gathering again, and demand for alcohol picked up after months of uncertainty. For Mike and Jerry Benson, it was an opportunity to rebuild what they had lost. Starting over was not easy, but they returned to doing what they knew best. They continued producing moonshine while adapting to the challenges that had reshaped the business during the pandemic. Away from the stills, Mike also reached an important milestone in his personal life. After being engaged for 7 years, he married Jenna Hurst in September 2021. Their relationship had never been rushed. According to Mike and Jenna, they wanted to be certain they were ready before taking that step together. So after years of building a life together, they finally exchanged vows before leaving for a honeymoon in Florida. His television career continued as well. When Season 12 introduced Solomon Sutton, the son of legendary moonshiner Marvin "Popcorn" Sutton, Mike found himself working alongside someone carrying one of the most famous names in moonshining history. Jerry Benson already knew Solomon and believed he would be a valuable addition to the team. Although Mike had never worked with him before, he trusted Jerry's judgment. The partnership connected two different generations of Appalachian moonshining, blending Mike's years of experience with Solomon's family legacy. However, even as his career moved forward, the rumors never completely disappeared. Every time law enforcement carried out raids on illegal liquor operations, Mike's name seemed to find its way into online discussions. Headlines and social media posts often left fans wondering whether he had finally been arrested or forced out of the business. But much of that confusion comes from the nature of Moonshiners itself. The series is edited for television, and events are not always shown in the order they happened. By the time an episode reaches viewers, the cast has usually left the filming location long before it airs. That delay, combined with dramatic storytelling, has fueled years of speculation about what really happened behind the scenes. Mike's own journey has only added to the mystery. He has dealt with destroyed stills, failed operations, costly mistakes, financial setbacks, and repeated brushes with trouble. Each incident has convinced some viewers that the next chapter would surely be his last. Yet, time after time, he has managed to recover and continue building on the legacy he inherited long before he ever appeared on television. So, after everything Mike Cockrell has faced over the years, what do you think has kept him going? Do you think Mike is ready to leave moonshine anytime soon? Share your thoughts with us in the comments section. Remember to like, share, and subscribe for more. Also, click the next video showing on your screen. You will enjoy it.